Due to the opinionated nature of these programs, listener discretion is highly advised. If you have any questions or comments about today's program, you can give us a call at 716-878-5104.
You held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's the answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to, you're a nasty person, I'll tell you. They found millions of votes on camera, on government cameras, where they were stuffing ballot boxes. And when you look at what happened during that election, unless you're a very stupid person, you see what happens. A lot of the people, most people understand what happened. That was a rigged election, and it's a shame that we had to go through it. It's very bad for our country.
It is so incredible just to listen to Donald Trump. I mean, it just blows your mind. He sits there and says that, well, most people understand. They could look right there and see on the video that they were stuffing, boxes, with ballots. That's not what was happening. That's just not true. Elections are run by human beings. Human beings have time clocks in them. They work from 9 o'clock to 5 or from 10 to 6 or whatever their hours are. As it happens in elections, what they will do is they will keep election offices open longer to try to get as many votes counted during that time period as they possibly can. If they are unsuccessful in doing that, they have a process that they go through where ballots are put into satchels, essentially, that are lockable satchels. They place them in the same place so that when they come back in the morning, they'll start again where they left off with counting the ballots that had not been counted yet. That's just a normal process that's done in every single polling place in the country. Donald Trump says, well, you look at that, and obviously they're stuffing ballots into these boxes and whatnot. Clearly, they're rigging the election. No, they're not. That's an outright lie. And Donald Trump gets to do that. He calls the woman who's Caitlin Collins, who's interviewing him, calls her a nasty person because she asked the question. He stumbles around. Not only does he not answer the question, it takes him 46 minutes to even open his mouth to say some words. When he finally does talk, she says, well, what's the answer to the question I asked you? Well, if you want to hear the answer, you want to hear my answer? You're a nasty woman. You want to hear my answer? I mean, that is just insane. Yet that gets traction for whatever reason. I can't explain it to myself why CNN would give over an hour of CNN airtime to Donald Trump to allow him to do what he did and try to normalize the lying that Donald Trump is doing. If you keep telling lies over and over and over again and you don't get those lies rebutted, the lies become people's perception of the truth. And that's what's going on here. But this is L. Nathan here. Welcome you to our broadcast, focused on providing you insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And of course, you all know our program is live, so you can call in, you can join our discussion. We really hope that you would like to hear from you. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We're also here with our in-studio audience of one, Norm MacArthur. How you doing, Norm?
Good morning, Mr. Hare. Doing very well. Thank you, sir.
And Norm was over there laughing at your former president, Donald Trump. You're not supposed to do that. It's illegal to mock him and laugh at him. And I'll let you all judge him for that behavior. I, of course, have been innocent of doing it. Never. And that laugh came from Willie H., who thinks that I'm being disingenuous, saying that.
That's funny. That's hilarious to me. I'm sorry.
And Willie's right. I am being disingenuous. This is Willie H., who's our citizen of the 21st century, who does the live streaming of the program. Welcome, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare.
So I wanted to take today's program and talk about a couple of things. One is this this MO, this modus operandi that the Republican Party has adopted since the latter part of the Obama administration, which is to create investigations and then keep the investigations going, taking little tiny things that, you can say there's an inference there that this is connected to that, and we should continue to investigate the implications of that, and doing this over and over and over again, giving the impression to the public that there's something substantive that the public is being let to investigate, and that there's some suspicion that should be, raised about the people that the investigations involve. And so, the Hunter Biden thing, which it's like the Benghazi, you all remember the Benghazi case, right? In Libya, they had the terrorist attack, they killed a few American people, and the Republicans just made this, a firestorm. It's Hillary Clinton's fault. She should have had a great big shield and should have stood in front of the Benghazi compound. She should have been firing a machine gun herself to kill the terrorists. And I mean, that's the scale of nonsense that came out of this Republican committee. But they did 8 different investigations on this committee, kept it going for 6 years. And in the public's mind, a large portion of the public thinks that Hillary Clinton did something wrong in relation to Benghazi, not because they can say what the wrong was. All they can say is, well, they kept talking about it. We heard about it on the news. Fox News talked about it. Newsweek talked about it, and so on. It's that sort of stuff, right? The same thing is being done with this Hunter Biden thing. Now, I don't know whether Hunter Biden had his hand in the cookie jar or not. It's clear to me that Hunter Biden used the fact that his father was the vice president of the United States to open some doors and get his consulting firm some contracts, with some people. That's clear that occurred. But there's no documentation that shows that there was any quid pro quo, that Hunter Biden got a piece of money to get his father to do something for Romania or for China or whoever, and that actually got done. There's no documentation that shows that. Norm, you were about to speak on that?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hare, like I say, I'm kind of caught up with the idea of, and I hate to say this, but it just kind of coincides. It seems as if the media, like you say, they want to keep things going, and they utilize what they have to just to keep this thing going with Trump or whatever it is they're talking about. And Mr. Trump utilizes something that you taught me, the idea of deflection.
Right.
And is deflecting and just saying crazy things that's just all over the place, but it keeps the media rolling, and they're concentrating on this negativity, stuff that's not even true, and it just takes our eye away from the ball. A lot of people are concentrating on that and throwing us off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in today's story, you got Representative Tim Burchett, who is working with the House Oversight Committee. They've been spending, they claim, months looking into money paid to the Biden family while Joe Biden was vice president. Not even talking about his term as president. They're talking about 6 years ago when Joe Biden was vice president. Fox News asked why Republicans were not investigating the millions of dollars Ivanka Trump. Now, this is Fox News, who you wouldn't expect not to be saying this.
Right.
They're asking the question why Republicans are not investigating the millions of dollars Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner made while Donald Trump was president, while railing incessantly about claimed suspicious transactions between foreign entities and members of the Biden family. Now, I want to put this into context for you. According to the report, something in the area that they claim that the Biden family was paid something in the area of $10 million, not any particular person. The Biden family, like it's the Cardozo crime family or something. The Biden family was, according to this House Republican report, claimed that the Biden family was paid $10 million by foreign entities while Joe Biden was vice president. Not that the money was paid to Joe Biden, but that it was paid to members of Joe Biden's family by foreign people, which, as you go through the article, you'll find that that's China and Romania. And they refer to these foreign people as enemies of the United States or potential enemies of the United States. How many of you thought that Romania was an enemy of the United States? How many of you ever even heard of a conflict between Romania and the United States?
No. Not at all.
Not at all.
No.
But the Republicans say that if you're transacting business with the Romanians, you're transacting business with people who are potential enemies of the United States. So they make this hullabaloo about this $10 million. The $10 million is a lot of money. So let's not blow that off. That they claim over the course of the 8-year administration of Vice President Joe Biden under Barack Obama, they're saying that over the course of that time, $10 million came from these foreign sources into the hands of members of the Biden family. Now, that's the issue on the Biden side. But let's look at it on the other side. According to the Fox News report, they're asking why the Trump family doesn't face the same kind of scrutiny. They said, I do want to mention, absolutely, according to the Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, on record, Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, not alleged now, this is on the record. Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump made up to $640 million while her father was in office. And that's the 4 years that Donald Trump was in office. And they were official advisors to the president. Neville, who is a Republican from, I believe, from Tennessee, he noted that if you would, he asked, could you explain to our viewers why the Hunter Biden scenario is different from the Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump scenario? How are they different? So Burchett says, the Republican on the Oversight Committee, he says, well, that was business dealings that they were doing, and Ivanka and Jared are business people. So, that's okay. So the Biden's family, they're not business people. They were sitting on garbage cans, waiting on it to rain money and whatnot. And that's the craziness, right? So Neville says, if the problem is corruption and compromise, wouldn't any income of such a substantial amount be problematic for our country while someone is in office and their family members are receiving those sorts of payments? If Clarence Thomas is a horrid, terrible, example of a Supreme Court justice that ought to be thrown out of office and possibly put in jail for taking a vacation that would have cost $500,000, if it was paid for out of his pocket, helping his grandnephew pay for college, $50,000 he paid for or his schooling, rather, whether it was elementary school, high school, or wherever. If those amounts make Clarence Thomas compromised, what does $640 million do to you? See, so when we got to keep hearing this nonsense, from these so-called conservatives and these Republicans, you need to put it into context. Even if what they're saying is true, the record shows that it's not, but even if what they're saying is true, you're comparing the damage that could be done by somebody over an 8-year period that ended 6 years ago, somebody getting $10 million spread out across all their family members through 20 bank accounts, according to this report. Comparing that to two people, the daughter and the son-in-law of the former president of the United States, getting $640 million over that time period. Which are you most concerned about? The $10 million spread out over 14 years, or $640 million spread out over 4 years.
Yeah, 600.
Which is the most concerning.
Yeah, 640
Okay.
million. Yeah.
See, we used to have honesty amongst our legislators. Now we just have fakery amongst our legislators. They're just faking that they're doing stuff. Claudia Grisales, she wrote an article, House Republicans ramp up claims Biden family received money from foreign countries. This was in NPR. I went to this report because it was NPR. I tried to get the Newsweek reports out of the way, the Reddit reports out of all the ones that looked like they came from sources that had a political view. And I went to NPR because NPR supposedly doesn't have a political view. Amy Goodman, don't get mad at me. I know you're NPR and we follow your program. I'm just saying that NPR doesn't have a political view. It might not be the way this article reads when you read it. But the House Oversight Committee, in the article, House Oversight Committee Chairperson James Comer led Republicans on his panel to lay out a series of allegations that President Biden's family has benefited financially from foreign contacts, claims that the White House and their friends and family deny. Comer claimed the panel had obtained bank records showing Biden's family, including his son Hunter, receiving millions from individuals connected with Romania and China. Comer says, "We're pretty confident that the president was very knowledgeable of what his family was doing." And he said, it's just so crazy. The White House and a lawyer for Hunter Biden slammed the claims. According to the White House, Congressman Comer has a history of playing fast and loose with the facts and spreading baseless innuendo while refusing to conduct his so-called investigations with any kind of legitimacy. This is according to Ian Sams, who's a White House spokesperson. He said Comer has hidden information from the public to selectively leak and promote his own hand-picked narratives as part of his overall effort to lob personal attacks at the president and at the president's family. Abby Lowell, who's an attorney for Hunter Biden, said Republicans still have nothing to show for all these probes that his client and his business activities over the past 5 years. Republicans have fueled conspiracy theories, but found no evidence of any wrongdoing at all. And of course, you all know they've been on this Biden thing, the computer that supposedly was found in the garage in the Ukraine, somewhere. Like, even if you found a computer, what difference would it make? But they've been on Hunter Biden for at least 5 years, yet nothing has come out of any of these investigations. So now comes Representative Comer, who spent the last 5 months making wild predictions without proof, asking inane questions out loud. That's what they do. They pick something that they can say looks suspicious, and then they start railing about it, in real loud and vulgar terms, as if it's something horrible and shocking. And they give the impression to the public that something substantive has been discovered, when none of that is the case. Lowell said that today's so-called revelations are retread, repackaged misstatements of perfectly proper meetings and business by private citizens. Comer and Republican members on the panel said they had obtained new bank records showing more than a dozen transactions connecting the foreign individuals and entities to the Biden family. That sounds like, a lot of webs, doesn't it? A dozen bank records, or from a dozen transactions. But think about, over the course of a 5-year period, you're doing an investigation and you've uncovered a dozen transactions that involve the members of the Biden family. So assuming that there's at least 12 members of Biden's family, that would be one transaction per person over the course of the past 5 years. Would that sound like a real terrible conspiratorial engagement to you? But that's what's being talked about. That's the way it's being sensationalized, and the media gives license to it. Among the so-called records that they've been talking about, a woman named Gabriel Papaviciu, who was a Romanian executive, they said made payments to an entity that later made payments to Hunter Biden and relatives. Papaviciu made payments to an entity, and then sometime later that entity made payments to someone or something that was related to one of the members of the Biden family. That's what we're talking about. Okay?
It is. It's innuendo right now. I
Right.
mean, it really is.
Right.
But still, we are at a point where we haven't even gotten to, or they haven't really. I know that Trump supposedly turned in most of the boxes,
presidential records, that
from
belong to the people of the United States,
right,
that he stole from the White House,
yeah,
and refused to give back, even as we're talking right now.
and with that said, that's what I'm saying. It's like a double standard, you know. He still got what was Mar-a-Lago? Is that his?
Mar-a-Lago is his home.
That's his home, right?
In Florida.
Yeah,
that's his second White House.
And we don't even know if he still have boxes and stuff full of stuff.
The National Archives and Records Administration is still saying that there are records that they have that show that the other records must exist because they were the transitional records between one record and another. And so they said that still must be in his possession.
Wow. Do you know, it's funny how this stuff came so, right off of Trump, and they're in the process of investigating him. And then that's what I'm talking about when you talk about projection and deflection and gaslighting. It goes right to Biden's son.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You want to take the onus off of him and put it somewhere else. And that's what he's doing.
So this is the New York Times, another report. It says in 2019, the New York Times reported or did an investigation about this Papaviciu transaction, which documented payments to Hunter Biden in his role then as an attorney, and they found no evidence of improper actions by then Vice President Biden. This is in addition to an NBC report in 2019 that probed Hunter Biden's overseas dealings, and they found nothing at all. This has been going on for 5 years, railing, claiming, projecting, storytelling, and so on. Go ahead.
It's just so funny. We're talking about it being 5 years, but it's kind of like at the beginning of President Biden's presidency,
right?
And it's going on now still because it's going into the next phase of the next election.
Because the Republicans have so much influence over the media, and people will say, "Well, how would you say that? The media is all liberal." Now you believe that because the media pundits keep telling you that,
right.
But when you look at what the media is actually doing, what they're saying and what they're doing are not the same thing.
Can I just add something that we spoke of on our last session? Self-interest.
Yep.
Self-interest is it's the commonality that's going to, like you say, is going to always be there. And the media they're going to make their money. It's their own self-interest.
And remember, it's not John Q, maintenance man, janitor, barbershop owner. Those aren't the people that own the media, unless they own a little bit of stock. They're not the people that own the media. Right? The people that own the media are the Rupert Murdochs of the world.
Yes,
right?
Sir.
They own the media.
Yeah.
And people that have that kind of money, that have 30, 40, 50, 100 million, $1 billion, that kind of money, right? They're big as countries by themselves. People with that kind of money, they own the media. They may not micromanage every single thing that gets said in the media, but they do drive the direction of media.
Right. Yes, sir.
Why was Donald Trump and continues to get all of this free FaceTime, right? I mean, all day, every day, Donald Trump. Whether it's good or bad publicity, the fact that his name keeps being tossed out there over and over every hour of every
More than
day.
anybody else.
I mean, way more than anybody else. Their names are more known than the names of the people whose television program you're watching.
Oh, yeah.
You're watching the program and you don't even know the name of the announcer, but you know Donald Trump's name,
Yep.
right? And so that's because the media itself has an agenda, right? They want to see lower taxes because they're owned by the people that are the
Right.
great billionaires.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And
oh,
so
yeah.
if you lower taxes by 4%, you know, for somebody who's a billionaire, that might be,
That's a lot
you
of
know,
money.
that might be $40 million, maybe $100 million that stays in their pocket,
Mm-hmm.
you know, rather than going into taxes.
A lot of money.
But the price for that is the people who are at the bottom end of the tax scale are the ones who end up paying the cost of the police and the sanitation workers
Mm-hmm.
and the school teachers, you know, and, you know, all of the public services that we have as a country. Those services are being paid by taxes, but the taxes are being paid by the lower class people. The upper class people are ducking taxes altogether.
Write it off.
Right. Go ahead.
You know, for me, this is a issue that I'm seeing, and it's kind of a long-term issue. Now, Trump only has 4 years in office, so
Four too many, but go ahead.
it's 4 too many. But you know, the way we have our system set up, he can be there for 8 years.
Right.
So even if Trump doesn't make it this year, it's like the way things are going, we might still have to deal with him in the media over the next
And remember,
8
you
to 12
might
years.
you might not end up dealing with him, but you could end up dealing with somebody who was like him, who's just not as elucid. I'll say it that way. Somebody who's not as elucid as Donald Trump can be.
All right.
Man, I reached for that one. That was good.
You went deep.
I gotta write that one down. I should get a fairness award, you know, for coming up with that euphemism. Okay, so but the point is that you could end up with Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
You know, you can and end up with a
his
number of
his
other
little
people.
brother or something.
Right, right,
Kind of
right.
crazy.
See, because we'll talk about this in the second half of the program. I want to help you understand the crisis issues that we're facing as a country. The fact that our debt is bigger than our GDP right now. That's a crisis issue that we're facing as a country. But the solution to the crisis issue is something that is already in our hands. All you have to do is stop doing something that you started doing over the past 5 or 6 years, and your solution will unveil itself. It will actually implement itself. This is the way that we have to start thinking, and I want us to talk about that, you know, on the other half of the program. Go ahead.
Well, it's just funny to me that the way that the people of the United States and the way that I guess most of Trump's people, they rally around him and they just try to keep him relevant. And for me, I am just, you know, I'm done with Trump, man.
I just need for us to understand no one does anything that is not in their own direct self-interest.
Right.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason why these people are behaving the way that they are.
But Mr.
I want you to feel this though. What they're doing is contrary to their own interests. They are selling themselves out. When they gave out that 41% cut in corporate income taxes, a 11% cut in personal income taxes. They did that because that was in their interest.
In their
right?
interest, yeah.
But the price that they paid for that was a loss of almost $500 billion of revenue to the federal government, plus the interest payments on that revenue. That's probably another 30 or 40 million or $1 billion. And so what I'm saying here is that the nation is the Congress people that control us are doing things that are opposite of our interest as a country. Why are we doing this? We're doing it because the people who are in charge of the country have a separate agenda. One part of their agenda is economic. They want to have control of the money and keep money flowing up to the people that money's flowing to as much as possible. They want to keep that going and lying to you the whole time that they're doing you a favor by taking your money. You know what I mean? When you go in your pocket, you try to put your hand in your pocket to get to your wallet, and you find there's another hand. Sometimes two hands are in your wallet. So you got that going on. But the other part of this issue is that they want to keep people in power, and those people in power, for them, it's a majority versus minority context.
Yeah.
They're so worried that minority people will become the majority people in this country, that the hustle that they got going on right now that preserves their supremacist organization of society, they feel that supremacist organization of society is going to be threatened if you have a majority minority in this country.
Let me add one thing. I know we're cutting.
Right.
They want to keep themselves in power and keep us out of power.
There you go.
They want, it is what it is.
Keep us as a servants and slaves.
Sometimes the obvious is the truth. So listen, we got to take a quick break and talk to our sponsors. Don't go away. We will see you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY.
Protect his home and family from disaster, Steve used courage, wisdom, and his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM WBNY Buffalo. Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY.
WBNY Buffalo.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of 91.3 FM WBNY, the United Students Government at Buffalo State, or Buffalo State itself. Due to the opinionated nature of these programs, listener discretion is highly advised. If you have any questions or comments about today's program, you can give us a call at 716-878-5104.
The House, the Senate, and the White House should be negotiating a responsible debt limit increase right now. We need to lower inflation, reduce our dependence on China, and lift Americans out of poverty. America has a $31 trillion debt, and Washington is on the clock. But what are Democrats doing? President Biden is skipping town to deliver a speech in Maryland rather than sitting down to address the debt ceiling. He's giving America's debt the southern border treatment. Ignore it and hope that it goes away.
To slap Kevin McCarthy on television, just one of those real loud cracks that you could hear on the radio for blocks away. It's just despicable what you see going on. The debt that we're talking about is not a debt that was accrued by Joe Biden. It was accrued by the United States over the course of the past 245 years. 40% of that debt was accrued under Donald Trump in his 4-year presidency. So the issue is not whether or not we have a debt. The issue is whether or not we have the will to pay the debt. He talks out of 8 sides of his mouth. We got to do something about poverty. We got to do something about health. We got to do something about this and that. And we also got to get rid of the debt, and we got to get rid of the deficit. Well, you can't do any of those things without legislation, and the dollars have to add up. And what you're talking about, your dollars don't add up because you don't want to do what you say. You're just saying stuff because it sounds good. But when you did that 41% corporate tax cut, did you take care of poor people then? Or did you make their lives worse? You know, when you lowered personal income taxes by 11%, did you take care of poor people then? Of course not. I need for you all to understand what this means. The corporate tax rate fell, the collection of corporate taxes fell by over $250 billion from 2017 to 2018. We lost $250+ billion just in corporate revenue alone. We lost another $200 billion in personal income revenue alone. That's 450, maybe as much as $500 billion just from that one move in December of 2017. As a consequence of this, our deficits rose by that amount. Now you add on to that the pandemic and all of the spending that had to be done to deal with the consequences of the pandemic, which you had to do. You can't have the country all sick and dying and whatnot. You had to do what you had to spend the money that you had to spend. So that was done. You had the Ukrainian, situation take place. Now, maybe the Republicans don't feel that the United States should be involved in Ukraine, but most of the world that are involved in the sustaining and development of Western democracies all want to see Ukraine survive Russia's attack on their country. Because if you don't stop it, it'll attack other countries. And this will just get worse and worse. It won't get better.
Yeah.
So they're doing what they have to do. So that creates the dynamics that produce the deficits and the debts that we're incurring as a country. But we can work our way out of that. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this, if you guys will work with me. Sometimes I have to put my economist hat on,
all right,
so that you all can you can work with me. You know what I mean? I'll try to say it in colloquial terms, but I want to put my economist hat on. I went to an article written, this was for CNBC by Ganesh Sethi that talked about the U.S. lost more tax revenue than any other developed country in 2018 due to Trump's tax cuts, according to this CNBC report. The U.S. lost more tax revenue as a percentage of its GDP than any of the other Western democracies in the world.
Well, you talk about self-interest. That's exactly Trump. Trump is a businessman.
Yeah,
he's owning. He's big corporation. So of course, if he goes in, his self-interest is to make more profits, and his homies too, his peeps too, his corporate peers.
Right.
I mean,
and he makes money just for telling his friends, I'm going to do things to make you money.
Right. Exactly.
Here's $100 million for that.
Exactly.
Man. You ain't even got to give me any money right now. Just take this $100 million because I know you're going to be helping me as it goes along. So here's another $100 million for you.
Could you imagine the some of the banks that's tied to all these other big corporates? So money begots money. He's gonna I'm gonna help you guys make money, and so you guys hook me up.
Here are the few points that characterize 3 points that characterize this article. The first is that the United States tax revenue as a proportion of GDP drops the most of any country in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in 2018. Second, thanks to Trump's tax cuts, the U.S. tax to GDP ratio fell 2.5% from 2017 to 2018. Third, the 2018 tax cuts dramatically alter the U.S. tax landscape for the first time in decades, though the promised surge, this is the important part, the promised surge, you all know about the surge game, right? Surge means, oh, big stuff's coming, big surge. It says,
Well, to some people.
Right. So the promised surge in economic growth and investment did not occur as a result of this tax cut. Let's dig into that a little bit. U.S. tax revenue as proportion of GDP dropped the most of any country in the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. That's largely due to the $1.5 trillion GOP tax cut that President Donald Trump signed into law in December of 2017. The tax cuts dramatically altered the tax landscape for the first time by permanently slashing the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%. Now, corporations were only paying 6% of the total taxes collected by the country federal government in the first place. If you cut that by 41%, that means you're only paying 4% of the revenue that comes into the Treasury, for the federal government. Somebody thought that made sense? Yeah, a lot of them, Republican senators, and let's not forget, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema and these other so-called Democrats. They signed on to this stuff too. It ain't all just Republicans by themselves. How Trump's tax bill is impacting your investments. From 2017 to 2018, the U.S. tax to GDP ratio fell from 26.8% to 24.3%, according to the OECD. While corporate tax revenues fell by 0.7%, and corporate income tax revenues dropped by 0.5%. That 2.5% drop in tax revenue related to GDP equates to $750 billion in lost revenue each year. $750 billion. Now, y'all not feeling me. I can see it. Somebody was just set their cup down. Somebody over there, is sipping. You're not feeling me. The deficit for the year that ends September 30th of this year, that deficit for that year is about $1.3, $1.4 trillion. The $750 billion that we lost in revenue from the 2017 tax cut that Donald Trump signed represents more than half of the total deficit that the country is incurring.
Hey, Mr. Hill, I got to say this, though. There were some Black Americans that was happy with Trump. And I realized who those guys were because I spoke. I'm like, what you mean you like Trump? Trump made them money because they in that bracket.
Listen, Bruce Smith, come from the barrio like the rest of us, right? But when he got up there into them contracts, paying $30, $40 million a year, all of a sudden he became a Republican. Somebody said, well, Brucey, why would you be a Republican? Why'd you all of a sudden start to like these people? He said, I don't really like these people. He said, but I like their tax policy.
Right. Right? They making me money.
See? But what I'm trying to get people to understand, basically the point that Willie is trying to get us to understand is if you're making $40 million a year and I hit you for $6 million in taxes, so now you're making $34 million a year, how hurt are you?
Right.
I mean, are you even feeling that? I make a decent piece of money. Even retired, I make a decent piece of money. I'm still in the middle class a tax bracket, maybe a little bit slightly higher than that. But my point is that I'm only going to eat so many peanut butter sandwiches in a week. I'm only going to drink so many Crystal Lake, sparkling water in a week.
Right.
I'm only going to go through so much jelly, at some point, I'm not going to eat anymore. I'm not going to consume anymore. I'm just going to be cool with what I'm doing, right? So when I'm at that stage and my income is still growing, it's not hurting me for me to pay more taxes on my higher income because it's not hurting my ability to live the lifestyle that my revenue allows me to be able to live.
Mr. Hare, this is something I was trying to articulate a while back. It's almost like these huge companies, when they are taxed or whatever the tax rate is for them, it's really not affecting them. It hits them, it rolls right off of them. You know, that's how come the higher taxes should go to these corporations and big money individuals. And I know that this is a democratic thought, but it really should, because it really doesn't affect them. When it hits us, it hit a brother like me, it hits me pretty hard.
Well, I'm not going to go so far as to say it doesn't affect them. If I'm a company and I could save $6 million in taxes,
it affects the bottom line, but it's not going to hurt them, is what I'm saying.
Right.
I want to word that differently.
That's the core, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you have to establish priorities, right? Mm-hmm. So if I want to ensure that I have clean water, if I want to ensure that my food is safe, if I want to ensure that roads are graded properly so that I don't slide off the road and end up, off a cliff someplace because the roads were not graded properly and became too slippery. I don't want to be in a situation where there's so much junk put into the air that 10% of us end up with asthma, as a consequence of pollution in the air. There are things that I want to ensure myself that they're going to occur, that our society is going to pay for. I know I have to pay for it. So I pay taxes to pay for that. I may never like paying taxes.
Right, none of us do.
Right, I'm not gonna act like I'm some altruist that loves paying taxes. I don't. Go ahead.
I just like to ask a question, and it's kind of just wonder. I'm sure. I'm kind of making a statement also, but I'm sure there are more poor or financially challenged people in our country than there are rich.
Right.
Okay, so with that being said, with the vote, with everybody coming out and doing what they need to do in order for our self-interest to change, we have to do that, and we have to be able to change and get the vote, get like-minded people here that are going to. And I don't just want to tax the rich, but I think that the onus should be put on them.
Right, and I'd like to hear from the audience members, what your thoughts are about that. See, because from my point of view, I as an individual see myself as paying into a fund that allows us to be able to do collectively the things that you cannot easily do individually.
Correct. Yes, sir.
I can't dredge the rivers by myself. If I could, I would, but I can't. I can't build the roads by myself. If I could, I would, but I can't.
Right.
I can't hospitalize everybody who needs hospital care. I can't teach every kid that needs to be taught, in public schools by myself. That has to be done collectively. It can't be done individually. I hate paying taxes, but I know in order to get these things that must be done by us collectively, if they're going to be done at all in this country, I have to put money in the pool.
Right.
That money is my taxes. Yeah. Now, let me help you with something, just in terms of how other nations, see their reality compared to how this nation sees its reality.
Okay.
Because I'm telling you that the United States, in my view, is a predatory nation. Its entire ethos is built on preying on whatever they think is weak. That's what this nation was built on. When those Native Americans were discovered on the shores of Hispaniola and Virginia, and so on, and they didn't have any guns, they were walking around here with tomahawks and bows and arrows. The Americans, the English and the Spanish, and would look at these people and say, are they crazy? They think they can beat us with that kind of stuff? Oh, no, you're giving me everything you got. I'm taking everything. And that's what they did. Yeah. They didn't come and just take everything. I mean, everything, not some of the stuff. They came and took every single thing the Native Americans had, everything, even their lives. They took everything. The population of Native Americans in North America dropped from just about 25 million people in 1700 to just under 2 million people in 2000. They wiped out 95% of the entire population of Native Americans. These people, they play for everything. They play for keeps, and they play to win all of the time. That's the ethos of how we got founded as a country.
And growing up, I thought that was great. I would see the West Ends with them killing the Indians, like, yeah.
And we saw you doing that, and we tried to stop you from acting like that, but you just kept on doing it, putting the paint on your cheeks and whatnot, and just acting like that. But you follow my point,
Yes,
right?
sir.
These people play for keeps, and you're just playing to play. I need for you to understand, I can't do anything about what the United States did to turn itself into the United States. Okay? I mean, I can whine about that all I want, but I can't change the fact that it occurred. It has occurred. We are who we are right now. What we can do that's different is we can recognize what we did that was wrong.
Right.
What we did that we should be able to do better now.
Right.
Because we are better now than we were then.
Right.
That we should now try to rebuild what we destroyed. We should try to build the society that we want to live in and not get mad about it. We have to pay for public schools, period. If you don't pay for public schools, you're rolling the dice as to whether or not your kids learn how to read.
Right.
I told you before, in 1865, 1870, only about 25% of Americans could read at a 6th grade level at all. This is unusual for people to, to read. But I wanted to get to this point about how other countries deal with their reality and how you deal with your reality here in the United States. Other countries pay about 34% of their GDP to their federal government as taxes. The United States only pays 24%. If we just paid the same rate of taxes as a percentage of our GDP as other countries do, we would create another $3 trillion of revenue to the United States Treasury that would wipe out our deficits over the course of a year. It would wipe out our debts over the course of 20 years. We can do this right now. We just don't want to do it. And you all have to recognize that's what's really going on. We have a caller. Hang on. Let me get a caller real quick. Hi, caller. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
I just wanted to make a point. You were talking about the Benghazi situation and all the hoopla surrounding that. There have been many attacks on U.S. embassies over the years. And I think under the Bush-Cheney years, there were a dozen or more, and more than 50 people were killed.
Yep.
And it hardly made a blip. Nobody investigated those, at least, not that I'm
Well, there was no noticeable investigation anyway.
Right. And then there was a situation under Reagan back in the 80s when in Lebanon we had, I think, 150 Marines were blown up in a terrorist attack.
Yep.
After which he pulled the rest of the troops out.
Was that the Cole, USS Cole? Was that situation? No, it was in Beirut, wasn't it?
It was in Beirut, yeah.
Right.
But he pulled the rest of the troops out, which may have been the wise thing to do. But if a Democratic president, let's say Obama, had done something similar, he was a feckless weakling. He gave in to the terrorists.
He would have been called a coward, right?
Yeah. I just wanted to make that point. I like your show.
Yeah, those are great points. Thank you for your call. I appreciate you, man. So, this is where we really got to go. You got to focus in on what's true. And focusing on what's true, if we paid taxes at the same average rate of other Western democracies, the 36 other countries in the world that are supposedly Western capitalist democracies, if we paid our tax rate at the same rate that they do, we would generate, remember, our GDP is $31.4 trillion. So if we increased our tax rates by 10%, right? 10% of $31 trillion is $3.1 trillion. Our deficits are $1.4, $1.5 trillion. So we would actually create more than twice the amount of money that we are now that now represents our deficits. We would wipe out our deficits in the very first year. Over the course of 20 years, we would wipe out 100% of the debt that we have as a country, and probably sooner, because we'd be paying less interest on that debt as well. Remember, if you have a debt of $31.4 trillion and you're paying 4% interest, you're paying $120 billion in interest payments on that debt. So the more of that debt you get rid of, the less interest you have to pay on that debt. This is a solvable problem. Now, it's a solvable problem, but it's not an easy problem to like. It means that somebody like me may go from paying, say, 25% of my income in taxes. I may have to go to paying 35% of my income in taxes. I'm not going to like that. I'm feeling bad about having this conversation right now. In fact, I want to hit somebody just because they were thinking about that, right? You feel me? Because that's my money, right? But the reality is, if I were willing to do this, to bite the bullet, pay the price, and do it right now, in 20 years, there will be no debt for the United States at all. It would mean that over the next 20 years, there will be no deficits for the United States at all. It would mean that everything that we claim we want to happen in terms of keeping our house in order would be happening right now. It would mean that the country would relearn how to care about its own citizens right now. We've learned how to not care about our citizens. We have to go the opposite way. We have to learn how to care about our citizens. That's what that would occur. So as much as it strains me to even think about the fact that you all want 10% more of my money. My fists are balling up right now. I'm having a hard time, with this. But I am willing, as much as that stresses me, I am willing to pay that price to get our house in order. But we have to pay the price now. We can't wait until 30 years from now when the thing is so bad that you got to pay 100% of your income, in taxes. We have to work this out right now. Go ahead.
Mr. Here, I could be the devil advocates, and like for people who do have money, there's some rich people that got money that give to help other institutions or whatever. And they may say, well, instead of giving my money to the federal, I'm helping out the community or whatever else. But also, I don't mind paying taxes as long as everybody else pay their
Well, that's
fair
the
share.
ticket right there. I don't buy the first thing you said about.
Yeah, I know. I was just trying to get you to
stop
think.
saying that. Stop saying that.
Okay.
Don't say that stuff out loud.
Okay.
Because they'll start imitating what you said, and that's how it used to be, right? They would give the money to their church or their mutual aid society, and so on.
Right.
But if you weren't a member of that church or you weren't a part of the fan club of the mutual aid society, you didn't get any of that.
You didn't get anything.
Remember, we lived here for 250 years where it was illegal to teach us how to read, right? So if we were waiting on somebody else to teach us how to read, we'd be waiting a long time, right? So I just want to make sure we keep those things straight. But the larger issue here is that if we do right things, just do right things, and put ourselves in a position that we solve our core problems right now. Just solve the problem right now. Get it under control right now. It will only reward us every year going forward forever. It will reward us over and over and over and over again. It will reward us. We just have to have the will to do it. Our problem is we don't have the will. We don't have the will because the people that are in control of this country, they have completely separate agendas. They have one agenda that says, I'm the world's class of ruling economic powers on earth. I'm not even bound by having citizenship in a country. I'm a world citizen. I'm beyond citizenship. You got Rupert Murdochs and the Musks, and all of these different, billionaire class people. So they see the world completely differently.
Right, correct.
Right?
They do.
They see the world in terms of money coming up, and then they go and build spaceships, and they mine energy out of volcanoes. Who is dumb enough to be mining energy out of volcanoes? you know what's coming out of that volcano, right? The rest of that energy, and you're not going to be real happy with it, okay, when energy comes out. I know we're at the end of our hour. I just wanted to be sure that we got this perspective in our heads, that we can solve this problem. It will be painful. You will pay more taxes, but you will be in control of your financial reality as a nation forever if you do this right now. Thank you all for listening to us and supporting us. We look forward to talking to you all on Wednesday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. Be safe. We'll see you then.